How does this value-priced auto rack from Walthers stack up against other auto racks in the market? Let's take a look. Hi, I'm Dan Cortopassi. Today I'm reviewing an HO scale 89-foot auto rack from Walthers. My model is decorated as a Southern Pacific auto rack with a trailer train flat car. It's part of the Walthers Proto line. I got my car as a review sample from Mike's Trains in Thomasville, North Carolina. The MSRP for this car is $69.98. The price sticker on the box from Mike's Trains is $58. Auto rack models tend to be priced higher than many other types of freight cars. By way of comparison, the most recent MSRP for an Intermountain auto rack I could find is $99.95. The MSRP for the Atlas Master Multimax auto rack is the same, $99.95. The MSRP for a Scale Trains auto rack is $79.99, and the MSRP for a Roca Models auto rack is $109.95. I should note that the Atlas, Roca, and Scale Train cars are models of different prototypes. The Intermountain car is the only one that's similar to the Walthers car, and it's about $30 more expensive. The lower price level of this car will factor into the review, which is why I'm making a point of mentioning it. I reviewed one of the Roca Models cars last year if you want to check it out. I also reviewed the Atlas car back in 2020. We'll start this model at 100 possible points. The car comes in a cardboard box with a clear plastic window on top. A foam liner surrounds the model. Transparent flexible plastic helps to protect the paint and details. There's a sheet of paper inside the box with some prototype information, a parts list, and exploded view drawings. The box design is a little dated, but if the plastic wrap is reused, then it should do an adequate job protecting the model for storage and transport. For a very long time, railroads have been used to ship new vehicles. In the early days, boxcars were often used. In the 1960s, railroads began to use long flat cars with specialized auto racks mounted on them. Early cars were open designs, but this left the vehicles vulnerable to weather, vandalism, and theft. Later designs added side panels and eventually a roof and end doors. Many of these cars also have cushion underframes to protect against rough coupling. Interestingly, these cars are classed as vehicular flats, so technically they're flat cars. The flat car and auto rack are actually two separate pieces of equipment, and they can have separate owners. The flat car portion is often owned by a leasing company, while the auto rack itself is owned by a railroad. My model is an example of this type of car. The flat car portion is in TTX yellow with trailer train markings, and the auto rack is painted and lettered for Southern Pacific. Modern auto racks come in bi-level and tri-level designs. The spacing between the interior decks for vehicles is bigger in the bi-level cars, so they're often used for larger pickup trucks and SUVs. There isn't a lot of difference externally between the two types. I found a photo of this exact car, TTGX 157481, on railroadpicturearchives.net from 2011, and the car looks to be a very close match overall. The car in the photo is heavily weathered and tagged, but given allowances for how the car probably looked as built, the paint appears to be correct. Detail-wise, the car is very close. The only thing I really noticed is that the upper slots in the doors should extend further toward the center of the car. This is pretty minor. Given that the car comes in at a lower price than many other auto rack models, I think it's acceptable. I found photos of similar SP auto racks from as late as 2023. The most noticeable date on the auto rack itself is from 1987, so this car would work for layouts set in the late 1980s to the present. The paint on the car is opaque and evenly applied. The lettering is crisp and the small stencils are legible with magnification. One of the biggest differences between the Walthers car and some other auto racks is that the side panels are plastic, not see-through. On the real cars, the panels are perforated, and at certain angles you can see through the car to the other side. At this price level, I think the solid side panels are acceptable. They could be made to look really good with some weathering. Plano makes photo-etched aftermarket panels that fit the Walthers car, though the current website price is $26, which would bring the overall price up to a level comparable with the Intermountain car that already has the see-through panels. The sides of the Walthers car are solid behind the panels too, so if you really wanted to make them see-through, you'd need to do some surgery on the car body. Near the ends, the ladders have wire rungs. There are nicely done jacking pads above the trucks. The delicate corner stirrups are made of plastic, but they're somewhat flexible to help resist damage. The B end of the car has nice brake ratchet and chain detail. On the ends, the car has freestanding grab irons. The end doors don't open. There are no uncoupling levers or air hoses. At this price level, I think this is also acceptable. On top, Walthers did a good job capturing the look of the corrugated roof. Underneath, the model has nice brake system detail. The triangular bracing is also open in the center, a nice touch, though this would be hard to see when the model is on the track. It's worth noting that the center sill is metal and most of the weight of the car is down low, which is really good because it keeps the center of gravity low. The car has metal wheels with the standard RP25 tread profile. The end caps don't rotate. The car has metal Protomax knuckle couplers on both ends. Looking for a match on the horizontal center line, the coupler on the A end is low, so I'm taking 5 points. The coupler on the B end is also low. All the wheels are engaged according to the NMRA standards gauge. The car wobbles, meaning that the body keeps shaking after the wheels have settled onto the track. This can make the car shimmy in an unrealistic way when running, so I'm taking 5 points. The car weighs 8.9 ounces, which is over the NMRA recommended weight of 7 1/8 ounces for a car of this length. Personally, I like a little extra weight as I think it helps the cars to track better. The car is free rolling. I'm testing the car on some Kato 550mm curves, which equates to about a 21 5/8 inch radius. The car seems to work fine, at least at low speeds. Broader curves would be preferable, especially if the car is in a train with other long cars. There are 3 screws that hold the bottom cover plate over the draft gear box. Walthers has been using a similar arrangement for many years on many of its longer HO scale cars, including auto racks like this one and passenger cars. On this car, the stirrups are part of the cover plate. There's nothing really wrong with the Protomax couplers, but I'm going to replace mine with Katie's because it's my preference. Since I'm going to be using whisker couplers, I'll also remove the spring. With the cover off, it's easier to see the swinging draft gear box. I'm using Katie 158s on this car. They drop right in, but they're still drooping and the height is still too low. Because the inner draft gear box moves, using a conventional shim to keep the coupler from sagging won't work. Instead, I cut a tiny piece of 10,000th styrene and glued it to the bottom of the coupler shank with CA. This actually made the coupler slightly too high. I could file some material from the shim to compensate, but I like this because it also cuts down on the vertical play. The unmodified Walthers boxes let the couplers move up and down quite a bit, a bigger slop factor than I care for. For the moment, I'll turn my attention to the trucks and fixing the wobble. Like a lot of models, these cars have a stud that sticks down through the hole in the top of the truck. Often these are a little too long to allow the screws to fully clamp down on the trucks. Only one truck needs to be tightened, so I'm going to file some material from the stud on one end. I started on the B end, but quickly realized that the brake rod was in the way. I didn't want to risk damaging it, so I changed to the other end. Now the A end truck is tight enough that it can pivot but not rock, preventing the car from wobbling. The other truck should be left alone so that the car can negotiate on even track. While I have the file handy, I'll remove some material from the tops of the truck bolsters to lower the couplers to the correct height. Now the car's ready for service. So I can remember building some Walthers cars from kits way back in the day, and this car seems to be just like an upgrade of those. You don't have to put it together, obviously, and there's some other niceties, like if I recall, those older kits had like molded on ladders on the ends, whereas these have the ladders with the individual wire rungs, which is really nice. Definitely improves the look of the car. It lacks the see-through side panels that some other auto racks have, like the Intermountain car, and it lacks uncoupling levers and air hoses. But it also comes in at a significantly lower price. So I think if you're looking for an auto rack that's kind of more value price but could still look really good, especially if it was weathered, this is a really good option for that. And if you want the uncoupling levers and air hoses, those could always be added with aftermarket parts. Let's see what we've got. The car had 2 low couplers and it wobbled, so I took 15 points in the standards and operation category. That leaves us with 85 out of 100 possible points, which earns a B. This is a nice model and it deserves a green signal. I think this is still a pretty good car from Walthers. If you're looking for a reasonably priced auto rack for a HO scale layout, then I think you might like it. If you like this video, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned and thanks for watching.